Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the June 25th, 2012 Lake Washington School District's Board of Directors meeting. We have all board members are present. And let's see, tab 6. I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda. I have had a request to move tab 6 to from consent into non-consent. So it would be the amended agenda.
Move adoption of the amended agenda.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second. Chris and Siri, you're going to just have to get faster. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Our first order of business is to give the oath of office to our new superintendent. So we will stand up. And Tracy's going to raise her right hand and repeat after me. I, Tracy Pierce,
I, Tracy Pierce,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
of Superintendent, Lake Washington School District Number 414,
of Superintendent, Lake Washington School District Number 414,
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law,
and to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution of the State of Washington and the United States.
the Constitution of the State of Washington and the United States.
You are now officially our superintendent. Hooray! Very glad to have that.
Thank
Good.
you.
Okay. And now recognition this evening.
Yes, we would like to invite Leanne and Terry Blair. No, you have to come up. We'd like,
Hi, ladies.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us here. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with an update of the foundation. For those of you, the big one? Can you get, okay.
No,
Is it on?
It sounds like it. I feel like I hear it.
there's a button at the bottom.
There? Okay.
You guys can hear?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear the
Okay,
feedback,
all right.
so, okay. For those of you not familiar with the Lake Washington Schools Foundation, we're an independent 501c3 nonprofit with the sole purpose of raising funds to support academic excellence and success for students and all students in the Lake Washington School District. Our focus is quality teaching and leadership, equal access to educational opportunities, and future-ready skills. In a community that is passionately committed to educating our children, the foundation forms a partnership for parents, businesses, and community leaders, local governments, and other like-minded people who are ready and willing to invest the opportunity to take action together that will have lasting impact on the entire district and all our students. These are the people that make up our volunteers, donors, and board of directors. Tonight, I'd like to provide you a brief update on the newest members of our executive leadership, the results of our most recent fundraising activity, and how we are presently achieving our mission focus. Every effective organization relies on capable, dedicated, qualified leadership. In addition to the important role of governance, our board is also a working board, heavily involved in building the internal and external organizational resources. On June 12th, our board of directors elected a new executive team. As executive director, I'm particularly fortunate to have the enthusiasm, commitment, and expertise of this newly elected team. Our new president is Peg Hunt. Peg joined the foundation board in 2009. She's an organizational psychologist. For 8 years, she was a principal research scientist with Patel Human Affairs Research Centers in Seattle. She got her Bachelor of Science in Psychology from the University of Washington and her master's degree in Industrial Organization Psychology from San Diego University. She has a history of successful fundraising in the Lake Washington Schools District, including chairing events with revenues in excess of $350,000. She is a Lake Washington Schools District parent with 2 sons. Barry Shaw is our new vice president. Barry's background was with Microsoft. He retired in 1998. His position was as a general manager for Active Voice when he was with Microsoft. He graduated from the University of Waterloo in 1983 with the honors math degree in computer science. Since retiring from 98, his focus has been on contributing to nonprofits and in coaching youth sports. He's the Lake Washington School District's parent with 2 sons as well. Our secretary is Kathleen Reynolds. She's a new member to our foundation board. She joined this spring in 2012, but that was after 2 years of writing grants for our foundation on the grants writing committee. She has a professional background in clinical drug development and pharmaceutical regulatory affairs. She has a Bachelor of Science in Zoology from the University of Texas. She's spent 5 years coaching on Destination Imagination. That's an educational program in which student teams solve open-ended challenges and present their solutions in local, state, and global tournaments. She is the Lake Washington School District parent. And finally, our treasurer, Bob Gild. He joined the foundation in 2011. He's a financial advisor, he's a chartered financial consultant, and a certified fund specialist. He is with Robbinswood Financial and earned his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and Marketing from Washington State University. He's a youth coach. He coaches in recreational and select baseball, softball, soccer, and basketball. His fundraising background has been with the Juanita Rebels Booster Club for 7 years. He was their president and community relations chair. He, too, is a parent in the school district. His children are graduated, but his passion reaches beyond their personal involvement. So, as the executive director, I'm thrilled to have that kind of support and background behind me as we're building for the future. Fundraising. So let's get down to the nuts and bolts of things. Our most recent activity was our luncheon that you're all probably aware of, but we want to just give you some details about that. It was on May 23rd. It was our 7th annual fundraiser, our luncheon. The day of event fund total was $180,000 that we raised on the day of event. We do still have $8,000 outstanding in potential matching gifts that can still come in throughout the year. One of our strategies this year was to come up with a matching pool to incentivize people to raise their gift size at the event. The results of that were the floor to be able to qualify for the match was $350. We had, in 2011, that $350, 18% of the people at our event gave at that level. This year, 33% of our guests gave at that level. We had a 29% increase in average gift size. We had a 40% increase in sponsorship funds and a 30% increase in actual sponsors. That was another area that we focused on building in. We did also have a new venue, and we hope we had, as we heard in feedback, anecdotally, we weren't really able to measure it, but a good guest experience. That was something that was important to us. So finally, how does all of this translate into us achieving our mission, which ultimately really is the student success and academic outcomes? Well, I'm going to give you kind of like a report on what happened last year and where we're going this year. So we just had our board, our end-of-year board meeting where we approved our budget for the year. So one of the areas that we focus in, out of our focuses, one of the programs that we fund are grants. And the reason for that is this, as I said earlier, we focus on quality teaching and leadership, access for all students, and future-ready skills. So with our grants resources teachers of innovation, excellence, and for special projects and initiatives. Grants also cover the full spectrum of students who need extra help, students that are gifted, and AP students, as well as grants that will affect up to an entire grade. So it covers all of those. So it covers the access as well as future ready and the student and excellence in teaching. In 2011 and in 2012, we were able to fund 35 grants across the district that affected 8,300 students. In 2012-2013, we just approved and notified our teachers of 30 grants across the district that are projected to affect 8,200 students. Another area that we focus that we have is a program called Looking into the Needs of Kids, LINKS, which is mentoring and tutors. Volunteers work one-on-one with students to help them feel connected, valued, and challenged. It also works into they come from all, and the volunteers come from all backgrounds. They're retirees, They're business people, they're community volunteers, they're parents, and they work and they're trained. And that's part of what the program is we pay for someone in the district who works in recruiting and training and supporting these volunteers. They help with skills like problem solving, critical and creative thinking, collaboration and communication. It also helps students to be able to be brought up to the point where they can again be working and collaborating with their peers, become a part of, and functioning in a way that will help them to be successful. In 2011 and 2012, we were able to help 788 students through 158 mentors, providing 4,400 mentor hours. This year, and at the end of last year, we actually still had 60 children on a waiting list, so we weren't even able to meet the need. It's a program where we really have to look into growth. The anticipated need this year is 1,500 students. We are waiting for our program person from within the district to help us to understand what is your strategy going to be to meet that need. Now that we've identified what the need is, we have in fact allocated $72,000 for that program for this year. Finally, there's two more. There's a smaller fund, but nonetheless important. It's called our Access Fund. It goes into what a lot of the other schools, partners with the other schools. They also, some of them invest in what's called Invest Ed. Some schools, however, don't have the abilities to contribute to that. So this is where we partner with schools that have abilities and the schools that don't have abilities. The purpose of the Access Fund is to provide money to pay for secondary school essentials such as foreign language workbooks, calculators, lab books, club fees, and other expenses to help students with financial needs to succeed in school. So this ties more into the focus area of equal access for all students and really on the children who have need. We contribute $15,000 a year to that. Last year, it helped 955 students in 12 secondary schools. This year, we know we'll go into all the secondary schools. We're not sure what that need will be, especially with reconfiguration. Finally, we always try to work one-on-one with the district for a special program. Last year, that was Core Summer School, Academic Summer School, and we provided 105 scholarships for students that would not otherwise have been able to attend. With the different funding with Title I this year, that need kind of shifted just a little bit. And what we're looking forward to is perhaps over the next few months, given where the board's strategic planning goes, is to look for what new and exciting thing that we can partner with. We've certainly set money aside within our budget to do that. So that's about where we stand right now.
Wonderful. And congratulations on the tremendous success of the luncheon. And as you all, those were there, it was a wonderful venue. Everything was just great and successful, too. But while you're up here, Miss Terry, Miss Terry Blair is the outgoing president, 2 years, but also has been on the board of this trust as a trustee since its inception. So she's one of the board members who's been there since day one to get the foundation up and running and continue championing for it daily. She puts in more time, I think, than sometimes staff does in this building. She's here a lot and often doing. But we have a little something for you.
You're so sweet. Just chime in here, too. I just want to convey our appreciation for all that you've done. And we know that while your term has ended, it's my understanding, Terry, that you're not going too far. No. You're still going to be involved with the foundation, and we're so glad and so appreciative of everything that you do for our students.
Thank you very much. It's actually my pleasure. I've been involved, as you know, many of you, with PTA and all the way through. Siri and I started this foundation 7.5 years ago, so we're very proud of it and how far it has come, and look forward to Leanne and her work with us and partnering with the district and continuing to grow the foundation, where we raise millions of dollars. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And Terry does this, for those who don't know her. She has done this with style, always with a smile, one of the most gracious people I know.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm glad you're not going very far.
I got to kick me out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is our time for public comment, and I have several people who have signed up to speak this evening, and just a little bit of the ground rules for speaking with the board. I ask you when you come up to come to the podium here, please tell us your name and attendance area in the district that you reside in, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And we have our visual stoplight here that when you see yellow, that it means you have about a minute, so it's a good time to kind of wrap up. I see we have several people speaking on the same topic, so it does help if each of you could speak on for your time as well, but if you could not necessarily repeat what was said in the person prior, but maybe give us something new or a different piece of the topic if you can. That would be really helpful for the board and for you. So first person, I can talk. Christian Carey.
Good evening. Thanks a lot for giving me the time here. Okay. I live at 22236 Northeast 31st Street in Sammamish, and my son is going to be a junior at Eastlake. And the topic I wanted to discuss was the AP History class there, and I sent an email last week to you all, so I won't rehash the whole thing, but just wanted to capture some of the flavor of what Dr. Zinn teaches our students. But just to summarize quickly, I'm concerned about the Lake Washington School District indoctrination policy being violated by the AP History class. There's a standard textbook, and then there's Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States, which is a book written by a self-avowed leftist radical, Howard Zinn. The students read hundreds of pages of this book, but they don't get any, or they get a few short readings of the opposing viewpoint that actually is from a patriot's history of the United States. The theme of this book is basically it's a leftist rant against the history of this country, portraying the history as a bunch of white male, privileged white males oppressing the people through the instruments of their oppression, like the Constitution and the laws of this country. And so it teaches the students to become ashamed of their country, become angry at their country, and for every discussion in class pointing out some of the biases and misleading statements, the students read hundreds of pages and hundreds of assertions from Dr. Zinn. They go unchallenged, and they don't have the base, the knowledge base, the students don't have a knowledge base and experience base to challenge that. So I'm just asking for balance in the curriculum. If you're going to assign 500 pages in this book, instead of that, say 250 pages of this book and 250 pages from the opposing viewpoint that asserts that our country is exceptional and basically good. Just a couple of quotes from this book. I think that it's extremely important for young people to learn a different history that will make them skeptical of what they hear from authority. I think if young people knew, for instance, the history of lies and violence that have accompanied American foreign policy, they would not be enticed into joining the armed forces. So I'm wondering if that's the goal of Lake Washington School District. There is the past and its continuing horrors, violence, war, prejudice against those who are different, outrageous monopolization of the good earth's wealth by a few, political powers in the hands of liars and murderers, the building of prisons instead of schools. It is easy to become discouraged observing this. So, and I heard the bell go off, I'll just give my last sentence here. I'm just worried that is this what you want our students to learn, to become cynical, discouraged, ashamed? And I would just ask that you use your influence to bring balance to that class. They have said to me that, well, the standard textbook is the balance. This is the Eastlake faculty, and it's just a standard textbook. So it's not the balance of an opposing point of view to this book. So I would just ask that that be required in AP History. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you. I just do want to acknowledge that the board received your email and did send that email to me, and we've begun a process to look into the issue. So I know the email was forwarded on Friday, I believe, or late last week. So we are in process of looking into your concern, and you can expect a response back from me later in the week. I'm just beginning to look into your concerns.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Tracy, when you're doing it, I'd like to know when they started using this book in this class and how they use it. I have a great deal of background in this subject and was quite surprised to find out we were using it.
All right, Margaret Adams?
I'm Margaret Adams. I have one son each at Thoreau Elementary and Juanita High School. Last year, we introduced the school board to our PTSA dyslexia subgroup and our productive efforts in working with Paul Vine and John Holman of the special education team. As you may recall, last year in May, the district provided training on dyslexia to all staff. We hope that you had an opportunity to take the training yourselves. It was a successful ending to the first year of our new group. We wish to again update you on another productive year with Paul and John. Our group met with and provided documents to Matt Montebianco to help the district understand the needs of students with dyslexia as it adopts the new reading and writing curriculum. We provided a recently released guide by the International Dyslexia Association and provided the OSPI's Dyslexia Resource Guide. The OSPI published the Dyslexia Resource Guide in November last year, 2011. It is a very easy to understand handbook on dyslexia. The OSPI Reading Office worked with the Washington branch of the International Dyslexia Association to put this together. Our group also brought to the district's attention the fact that many of the accessibility tools on Windows had been disabled. It turned out that no one had previously asked the technology group to enable them. Today, a student image screen has been added to all netbooks, allowing students to adjust the netbook as needed. The newly enabled accessibility tools are the magnifier, narrator, on-screen keyboard, touchpad, and Windows speech recognition. Our group is also very excited that Read and Write Gold is now licensed to all high schools. We believe that teacher and parent training will be key to our students' ability to fully access this wonderful software. We will be working with the district next year to set up training sessions for the parents. Our group also led the effort for American Sign Language to be offered in the high schools, addressing a need for a variety of students, not just those with dyslexia. Judy will be reporting on that effort. Our group is currently working with the district on further dyslexia training for interested teachers, and we are hoping to obtain some grant money. We are also working with the district to further the substantive knowledge of the Section 504 coordinators in the area of dyslexia. We are working on a master list of sorts outlining accommodations for students with dyslexia so that these coordinators can become familiar with them and understand why a student with dyslexia might need them. Our only disappointment this year was learning last summer that the district's attorneys continue to take the position that a revocation of an IEP is also the revocation of a Section 504. This limits the ability of a student for whom an IEP is ineffective from withdrawing and obtaining independent help more tailored to their needs, while at the same time still retaining their rights to 504. Our group continues to support parents in the district as we advocate on behalf of our children. Thank you.
And I'm going to mispronounce your name, so I'm going to let you tell me what it is, so I don't totally butcher it.
My name is Siri Zapletal, and I'm Margaret's husband, and I've been asked to read a statement for Mary Ann Anderson, who cannot be here tonight. She's a parent of 2 students at Carson Elementary. The following is about her daughter, who will be 7th grader next year. Mary Ann says, "My daughter Megan was placed on IEP in kindergarten. The caring and motivating teachers she worked with did not have access to curriculum that is scientifically proven to help students like Megan, nor they have been trained to understand strategies and best practices for students with dyslexia. Megan developed many friends and strong support system, and so we kept her in the district. We paid for specialized private tutoring 2-3 times per week after school. I worry every day we made a mistake in not sending Megan to a private school with a dyslexia specialty. Megan has been on IEP for 7 years. Megan still reads at 2nd grade level. Clearly, she is frustrated that her hard work is seeing such a little progress. This is not only impacts her reading and writing, but other subjects and her self-esteem. Every year, Megan falls farther and farther behind. Moving into 7th grade, our focus now turns to Megan's long-term success. How will she be successful in junior high and high school with her limited ability to read and write? Will she be on IEP her entire academic career? What does that look like? She wants to go to college. Will she be prepared? What about the foreign language requirement? Will American Sign Language be offered at Eastlake High School? The progress the PTA Dyslexia PAC has made and the positive reception by the district is only the tip of the iceberg. The district needs a scientifically proven curriculum to help students with dyslexia and some very specialized teachers that are well trained in dyslexia. Today, there is not a district memory of best practices and strategies to work with students with dyslexia. The wheel seems to be reinvented with each student identified. Megan is a wonderful 12-year-old girl that has dyslexia. The district should make sure that students like Megan and the others are not left behind, be a leader in applying the latest advances in curriculum, teacher training, and technology to ensure Megan and the others are successful, and make sure that Megan and the others are future ready. I want Megan future ready. Do you? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Judy Radloff?
It's phonetic. We're trying not to repeat ourselves, so
You guys are doing great.
we try to be organized. My name's Judy Radloff. My son just finished 8th grade at EAS, and my daughter will start EAS in 6th grade next fall. We live in the Lake Washington area. My son has dyslexia and a 504 plan, and my daughter, though she has similar struggles learning to read like my son, she received appropriate intervention from her dedicated safety net teacher at Peter Kirk Elementary, and she's currently diagnosed by our private learning specialist as a remediated dyslexic. A year ago, our group spoke to you, introducing ourselves, describing our goals to advocate for improved awareness for and education of students with dyslexia. And we requested 4 changes last year that we'd like to see in the district. One of the changes we requested was to see American Sign Language offered in at least one district high school. This goal became even more critical to us when the board adopted the Core 24 academic standards, requiring 2 years of a foreign language for high school graduation, beginning with the class of 2016, my son's class. I'm reporting today on the progress toward that change. I'm happy to say that Lake Washington High School offered ASL in the 2012-2013 course catalog, and I met with LW Principal Christina Thomas in February to thank her for this offering and ask if there was anything our group could do to help promote the offering. Ms. Thomas was very enthusiastic about ASL as an alternative foreign language offering. It was taught at the Kent District where she worked before coming to LWSD, and she encouraged me to talk to the counselors at the Lake Washington Feeder Junior High Schools, Rose Hill and Kirkland. Another parent and I met with them later in February. Those counselors at Rose Hill and Kirkland were similarly enthusiastic about the potential for ASL as a new foreign language option at Lake Washington High School, and they personally knew of smart kids who struggled through Spanish and French and said they encouraged some of those and others to sign up for ASL. Though we're not really sure what the firm numbers are, we have heard that over 60 students possibly have signed up for ASL at Lake Washington, and the school is in process of hiring a teacher. I guess they've advertised for a .4 position. This is very encouraging to us and demonstrates the potential popularity and viability of ASL as an alternative foreign language and an occupational education offering. So it's not just dyslexic students that might be interested in it. I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of a strong ASL program at Lake Washington High School and that ASL may expand to other district high schools. Just a side note, when I met with Principal Thomas, I pointed out to her there was a small inaccuracy in their catalog description of ASL. The description read that, quote, ASL may be accepted at some colleges for admission requirements, and it encouraged students to go and check with the college of their choice. Now, my 8th grader wasn't going to go and do that, check with the college of his choice to see if they accepted ASL for admission requirements. So one of our members called all the colleges in Washington State and found only one that didn't accept it, Walla Walla University. And Ms. Thomas volunteered to change the course description in their online catalog, accurately reflecting this important fact. So thank you again.
Thank you. And Amy Mickelson?
Nice job. Hi, I'll try to piggyback with Judy a little bit. My name's Amy Mickelson, and I have 2 sons, one who attended Juanita High School, will attend Juanita High School in the fall, and one who just graduated from Juanita. I want to share the story of my oldest son and his K-12 journey through the Lake Washington School District. After early struggles with reading, spelling, and never catching up despite support for a speech delay, he was diagnosed as having dyslexia in 4th grade. He did not qualify for an IEP. His father and I decided not to push the district for services, feeling the specific intervention he needed wouldn't be provided by the district. Time was of the essence, as he needed intervention before he fell further behind and his self-esteem suffered more. Over the years, my son spent many, many hours in private tutoring, and we spent many dollars paying for that. In 5th grade, he was placed on a 504 plan for dyslexia. While attending Discovery Community School, Renaissance Junior High, and Juanita High, his teachers were generally supportive of his plan. Having the plan in place was critical for his success. The accommodations and the use of assistive technology allowed him to achieve his goals. Having a plan also was instrumental during the required standard testing for college admission. One area my son had to go outside of the district was to obtain his foreign language requirements needed for college admission. As you know, soon all district students will be required to take foreign language for graduation. He attempted Spanish at Renaissance, but struggled even during the first few weeks. At that time, we decided he would take American Sign Language outside of school to meet these requirements. He took ASL 1 at Bellevue College the summer after 10th grade, having first to pass a college-level English entrance exam, which is stressful for a 10th grader with dyslexia. My son could tell you it was not a fun and carefree summer. He took ASL 2 at Cascadia during the winter term of his junior year on top of his regular class load at Juanita. This was a challenge, especially for a child with a learning disability. I hope the district will expand its offerings of ASL to all high schools so students don't need to go to the lengths that my son did, especially now that foreign language credits will soon be a graduation requirement. Through my son's determination, tutoring, access to ASL classes, classroom accommodations and assistive technology, and by enrolling in high school classes that matched his interest and learning style, I can proudly say he graduated last week with highest honors from Juanita High. He has faced many challenges during his journey, but has learned to advocate for himself and get the support he needed through his 504 plan. In the fall, he will study mechanical engineering at the University of Idaho. We are extremely proud of his accomplishments and look forward to what he will accomplish in the future. Though his story may not be typical, it demonstrates that students with dyslexia, with the right support and accommodations, including access to ASL classes, can succeed in school, attain college admission, and be future ready with the best of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and giving us an update and orchestrating it so well. So I really think we got a really good picture in the amount of time that you had to do that, and also for the district to continue the work that they're doing with you. That's really great to hear. And, I don't know, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Just to give a little update on the world language requirement, since many of you mentioned that. We, as you all know, earlier this evening in our strategic planning session, have mapped out our work for next year and the years that follow. And we do have a world language offering study on tap for next year. And we, as part of that early planning, implemented or essentially a pilot at Lake Washington High School. So in working with our high school principals, looked at which school didn't have our 3 current offerings already in place, and Lake Washington was one of those. So worked with them to offer ASL in their course catalog along with Mandarin, and to see what the student interest was. And as you mentioned, we had about 60 students sign up, so now we're in the process of working with the principal there to find a teacher and offer that course for next year at Lake Washington. And then part of our work plan for next year is to complete the world language offering study to get some input from students and parents in our community to see what offerings would be of interest, and then to develop a plan moving forward to expand our current language offerings. So just wanted to update you on that, and thanks for providing your update.
Great. And Bob Yoder?
Thank you, Jackie. Board, and I'm with, Redmond is where my district is, and Siri is the director of my district, so thank you for letting me be here. I didn't know that the dyslexia was, I still have a hard time pronouncing that word, but I didn't know that was going to be a topic of the audience, and if I have time, I'd like to talk about it a little bit, because I think I have it, and I think adults get it, or it's carried over into adulthood. And but what I wanted to address right now tonight was the first reading of the budget. Primarily, if it's read, I don't know if you actually do read it to the audience or we go online and then read it ourselves, but as far as the reading is concerned, the segue that I'd like to get to is community participation in the budget process, and it's not just how much we're spending as a community, but it's how much revenue we're bringing in. And that involves this levy that's pending, apparently is it 2014 or 13 or something. I'm a community member now. My daughter, Lexi, has graduated a couple years ago, and she's going to the school, college, Gonzaga. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. And she's a registered voter. And I've encouraged her to, number one, register here in this district, because before she went over to Spokane, because she can still vote. She's still connected to this community very closely and has a lot of passion for it. So this may be a political discussion, but I think it's important that it's her vote. She does with it what she wants to do, and she's of legal age to vote, and if she chooses to vote for or against the district levy, that's her decision. The point is that she is a friend of Lake Washington School District, and I think that we should encourage friends from the community, which would include students that graduated or people like myself that are in the community that pay taxes, and sign up friends to the PTSA, for instance. So my yellow clock has gone off, but that's the end of that topic. As far as dyslexia is concerned, I think I came down with it. This is back in 1966 when I was a freshman in high school in New York, and I took a remedial reading class. And because they put me in it because I didn't know why. I thought I was reading okay, but they were concerned. We didn't have a diagnosis back then. We didn't have 504 and we didn't have ASL. We just had to do it ourselves and plug through. It does carry on into adulthood, and I hope that that is brought out in the school system also, besides just looking at the, third, fourth, or whatever grade you're looking at. So, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that's in the audience that wanted to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 6.
So moved.
Second.
And Tracy, will you poll the board?
Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes?
Doug?
Yes.
Siri?
Yes.
And donations are tab 14.
14, yes, this evening we have donations totaling $225,045.13. Yeah, a big amount. So we've got a $28,972 donation from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation to the LINKS program to provide a stipend for LINKS coordinator and program expenses and grant funds. A $1,655 donation from the Redmond Elementary PTSA to Redmond Elementary to support Field Trips and Lunch Buddy program. $2,140 from the Redmond Junior PTSA to Redmond Junior High to provide academic enrichment mini grants for library, math, social studies, and science. A $1,781 donation from Redmond High PTSA to Redmond High School to purchase student planners. A $1,083 donation from Evergreen Junior PTSA to Evergreen Junior High to support a grant for music, art, and to purchase electronic readers and books. A $1,534 donation from the Lakeview PTSA to Lakeview Elementary to support teacher training and instructional materials. $18,114 from the Stella Scola PTO to Stella Scola to provide teacher stipend for extracurricular Latin 3 and 4. A $1,096 donation from the Eastlake Wolf Pack Association to Eastlake High School to purchase a barbecue grill. $2,000 from the Kirkland Junior High PTSA to Kirkland Junior to purchase a kiln. A $9,325 donation from Redmond Elementary PTSA, from Rose Hill Elementary PTSA to Rose Hill Elementary to purchase IXL math software and accelerated reader for the school. $4,049 from Peter Kirk PTSA to Kirk Elementary to support their 6th grade outdoor education program. $2,027 from the Lake Washington Schools Foundation to International Community School to support their senior field trip to Victoria, which is part of their comparative government class. $10,876 from the International Community School PTSA to the International Community School to support their senior field trip to Victoria, which again is part of their comparative government class. And a $140,000, a big one, $395, which is the value of the equipment that the City of Redmond has donated to the school district. And that donation is equipment to replace video production equipment in in our resource center, in the control room, and in the boardroom. Big donation. As always, we're very grateful to all of our partners for these donations. And since this is our last board meeting of the year, I also just wanted to do a little highlight of the year's donations. So to date, we've received over $1 million in donations. 24,000 plus from booster foundations. We've got the $140,000 donation from the City of Redmond. Around $20,000 from the Juanita Schools Foundation, $52,000 in individual donations, approximately $58,000 from our Lake Washington Schools Foundation, about $28,000 plus from other organizations, and a whopping $692,352 from our PTSAs to our schools and districts. So a very impressive number, and can't tell you how grateful we are for those donations.
Pat yourselves on the back there, and the PTA representatives, and please share that big thank you. Wow, I think that's an increase from them over past years. That's great. And I know the foundation one, I think we get reports on the foundation one kind of differently off and on through the year. So we'll try to capture a total from you, like we did last year, for reporting at the, at our September meeting. So that way we have every category. Because some of the schools submit them to us to do individually here on the list, but not all of them do. And some of the other things that go in don't all show up.
Right, so that might not be reflective of the
Yeah,
total
because I know
amount
I know
for
the total
school's
is
foundation.
larger than that. But, yeah, we haven't quite figured out how to have that piece get reported. As I said, some of the schools do and some don't, so it's not a consistent reporting from their donations. But everyone, thank you very much. Again, especially in this time of need and funding the way it is, to be able to have the partners continue to be able to support the district, because they're all in the same boat that everybody else is economically. And people don't have as much excess money as they do, but they continue to support their PTAs, and they continue to support the district, which is really, really, really important. So thank you very much. Okay, tab 6 now.
Yeah, so our first item on non-consent agenda is associated with our middle school intramural participation fees. So the situation is that with the reconfiguration to middle schools beginning this fall, we completed a review of our current junior high school sports offerings, and that review includes staff and parent surveys. We provided the board updates along the way, specifically back in November at a work session. And from this review, the discussion around creation of an intramural program for our middle level emerged around the following interests. We believe in the importance of our middle school students really having personal connections, being well known by at least one adult in the school, and having a strong connection to their peers, both academically and socially. We believe that intramurals, in addition to competitive interscholastic sport program that we have currently in place at our junior high and will continue to have in place at our middle level, we believe that by creating and adding an intramural program will increase the opportunity for students who might not normally participate in competitive sports or might not yet see themselves at the interscholastic level. They might still be interested in participating in an intramural sport. So we're seeing this as another opportunity for our students, especially potentially our 6th grade students, to make some connections to other students and their school. And we believe that the school should provide opportunity for students to participate in multiple ways in their areas of interest, and have programs both that are extracurricular in terms of clubs and ASB types of offerings, as well as athletic offerings. So we think that adding an intramural program will allow for a broader range of student interest and ability for participation in athletics. And it's a non-competitive kind of participation, unlike the interscholastic sports program at junior high. So we've made this recommendation to add an intramural program to the middle school. And as you know, we currently have a fee associated with student participation in our interscholastic sports programs at both the junior high and the high school level. So given that in order to offer an intramural program, we will need to have an adult receiving a stipend of sorts to supervise the intramural program. Won't necessarily be the same type of supervision needed or instruction that a coach would need, but we will need to have obviously an adult helping to facilitate the intramural program. So we have established a recommended participation fee for our intramural program that is a 25% amount of our existing interscholastic fee. The intramural season would last for 2 weeks. It would be a 2-week session that would come between the 8-week interscholastic competitive sessions. And the 25% or 1/4 amount of our current fee would result in a $25 participation fee for intramurals at the middle level for students. So it's a $25 fee to participate in a 2-week intramural program at the middle level. So our recommendation is that the board approves this middle school intramural fee of $25 for the 12-13 school year.
I'll entertain a motion, and then we can have discussion.
Well, I'll move that we approve this request.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion and questions.
And I'm assuming that, well, I asked for this to be discussed in the regular session because I think, again, this is kind of part of our migration process to, to middle school and four-year high school and all that. But I think it's important for the public to understand that we're doing this not to raise a profit, but because neither the state, we would either have to take it out of existing locally approved levy money, which would take it away from something else, and also the fact that the state doesn't support this kind of activity. So it really necessitates us raising it through a fee, and I think that's important for our public to understand. But that I think, again, this is one of those adjustments that has to be made in this very complex migration process to the new configuration. And I think the staff has done incredible work on this, but I think it does result in some things like fees that have to be considered.
And just was curious, do we have something built in for kids who are on free and reduced lunch or can't afford the fees for intramurals? I know we've had support from boosters and PTAs with the other sports fees to help with the coffers, but we do have a reduced fee for them as well. So I didn't know, did we have one? I realized people might say $25 isn't a whole lot, but it is if you don't have money.
Absolutely.
Janine's nodding her head at me.
Yeah. So with our other fee-based programs, there'd be a sliding scale and potential for scholarships for students on free and reduced lunch.
Will this also be built into the, it's like if you pay for 2 sports, there's a maximum amount you can pay out. Will that also be built into that?
Yeah, we looked at that kind of model, and it was becoming exceedingly complex to try to determine and build in the intramural part of that, because one model we considered was if you pay a fee for 2 seasons, does that get you your intramural season for free? We believe that, so there's 2 reasons we're treating it sort of separately. One was just the complexity of trying to manage and ensure that students were getting charged the appropriate fee, but another that we do believe that there will be some students who will participate in intramurals and see that as an interest that won't be participating potentially in interscholastic. So at least for this first go out, we decided to keep them separate.
And does this fee cover the cost for offering the intramurals completely?
We believe it will. Right now we are working on projected enrollment numbers. So our plan is that it would be self-sustaining. We won't really know for certain until we have a year probably under our belt to see how popular are the intramural programs. Are we really getting the signups that we think we will, but that's our intention.
Any other questions or comments?
No, my only comment is, this is what we were forced into with all the budget cuts. And when our community said, let's keep our funds that we do have in the classrooms, our fees went up for this, our transportation times got longer, and that's the world we live in. It's unfortunate, but it's the way things are right now. It's not an unreasonable fee, it's just unfortunate.
And as Doug said, athletics and sports and clubs and extracurricular has never been really from the state, but we've been able to have it in levies in the past. But as budget cuts came from the state, we had to take more levy dollars to pay for the things that we all wanted
For
to go
basic
for.
ed, we're basically using levy money for basic ed.
Instead of extras.
You're being
and so-
nice. I'm not in a nice mood. Sorry.
So the extras no longer are funded that way, and so that's where we are with fees. Okay. No other questions? Not? Oh, Chris has got a
I
comment.
don't know. Actually, I was just going to say that I'm enthused about this because if I recall correctly, one of the intramurals is going to be Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee.
And
that's
having
on the
recently
plan.
been on a flight back from Washington, D.C. with the national champion high school Frisbee team from over in Seattle, I think, there may be some local support for that.
Well, we have at least one teacher in this district who, an elementary teacher, I think he's still around. He used to take his kids out at recess and do Frisbee, ultimate Frisbee. We still have him, don't we? Cool teacher.
Yeah, great. Okay, all right.
Oh, and if they go to Whitworth, they'll be well positioned to be at Whitworth.
Glad to hear that.
Activity at Whitworth during
It's Frisbees. I love it.
ultimate Frisbee.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we're on to our budget.
Our budget. So this evening is our first reading of the 12-13 budget, and in a moment I'll be inviting Barbara Posthumus, our Director of Business Services, forward to present the first reading of the budget. Before that, I just want to give a little bit of context around the process that we use in developing our budget. First, of course, we wait for legislative decisions to be made so we know what our revenue stream is going to look like for the year. And we know that the good news is for this year, we do not have the same kind of cuts coming down from the legislature that we've had in previous years. That's not to say we now have the funds to maintain, or I should say, we're not getting the money back to go back and implement programs that we've had to cut in the past, but we're not looking at additional cuts for this
The bleeding
next year.
stopped.
Thank you, yes. And we mentioned in the athletic conversation that in the time where we were looking at big budget cuts, we did a pretty extensive community process to get input from our community around priorities, and that's one of the reasons at that time the community was in favor of paying more athletic fees so we could maintain programs. But the situation is a little different, or a lot different this year, so we don't have that same sort of that larger community process. However, Barbara will be explaining as part of her presentation what the next steps are after she presents the first reading of the budget. So we do go through an internal process of looking at our enrollment projections and getting input from various departments in the district and from buildings, and looking at new requirements that are coming down from the legislature in terms of programs that we need to implement or policies that we need to develop. And all of that information gets considered in developing the budget. We also work with our internal strategic advisory leadership team to look at any ad requests that come from departments or buildings, and there's a process of prioritization that team helps with and makes an ultimate recommendation that then gets brought forward to our board. So with that, I'm going to ask Barbara to come up and give us the first reading of the budget.
Thank you very much. Let me just get this set up. Thank you very much. This mic seems louder than it has been in the past. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, I'm very pleased to present the proposed 2012-13 budget for the Lake Washington School District. As Tracy mentioned, this year the state responded to the demand that there be no further cuts to education. And while we were saved from cuts, we did not experience any gains or increased funding. So the state COLAs for salaries and benefits continue to remain frozen, and they are continuing to shift the burden to the local taxpayers. So the good news is that the district is fiscally sound. We're maintaining our 5% fund balance, and though you'll see in this budget that even with level state funding, our revenues and expenditures are increasing, and that primarily enrollment, levy increases, and grant increases explain the majority of this. So I presented a preliminary summary of the general fund budget to the board at the May work session, and so I will use this time to present information on the other funds and to dive into more details on the general fund. I want to take this time to thank the staff that do a lot of the detail and behind the scenes work on this budget, my budget and accounting staff that really work really hard to get us where we are today and get this budget done. So let me first talk about the documents that you have in front of you. So you have what we call a budget summary document, and this focuses on the general fund budget, and we use this document. Every building has copies of this document in its final form, and we encourage principals to use this when parents come into the building with questions about state funding and where does the money come from. So that's really the purpose of this document. This document, what we call our Excel sheets or white pages, is just a summary level of each fund. So it includes both the general fund but all our other funds, and gives you details that's in a user-friendly format. The last document is the F-195 document, and that is called the F-195, and this is the state-mandated document. So every school district has a budget document in this format. It provides for easy comparison from district to district. This is the actual budget you will adopt in August. So we just have to remember it's not very user-friendly, though. It's hard to read. That's why we produce these other documents for you. But this is the budget that gets adopted. Okay, so I'll just provide a quick summary of each fund, and then we'll go into details. So the funds that we'll be talking about are our general fund, which is the day-to-day operations of the budget. That is a $238.8 million budget for next year. Our Associated Student Body Fund, which provides, that's a student-generated budget and provides for the extracurricular work of the district, and that's $4.6 million. And the Debt Service Fund, which provides for the redemption and payment of principal and interest on bonds, and that's $44 million. Capital Projects Fund is $151.5 million, and that's our modernization and our capital technology and facility levies. Our Transportation Vehicle Fund budget is $1.3 million, and that provides for the purchase of student buses. So altogether, we are managing almost $500 million in resources, $440 million. So I'll start with the Associated Student Body Fund. We're projecting a beginning fund balance of $610,000. Revenues, which come from student fundraisers, sales, and sports, of $4.5 million. Expenditures, also of $4.5 million for the extracurricular activities, for an ending fund balance of $591,000. The ASB budgets are put together by the students at each building. They are then consolidated into a district-level budget that's presented to you tonight. But there's a lot of work that goes on at each school by the student body to put these budgets together. So the next fund is the debt service fund, and the beginning fund balance is estimated to be $7.4 million. Revenues from the debt service fund comes from the taxes we levy from the voters, and that's $38.6 million for this next year. A new item that you haven't seen before is a transfer from the capital projects fund of $6.1 million. In May, the board approved a bond sale, and that bond sale included bonds that we're selling as part of our Phase 2 modernization, but it also included a limited general obligation bond sale to front fund the 2000 levy capital projects for Redmond High and Eastlake High that the voters approved in the 2011 capital levy. We're required to pay back the principal and interest on those bonds in the debt service fund. And so therefore, we're required to transfer the revenues, the future revenues that we will get from the 2011 levy to from the capital projects fund to the debt service fund. So that's why you see that transfer. So the $43 million, $43.9 million in expenditures is for the redemption of principal and interest on both the voted and the non-voted bonds. And we're projecting an ending fund balance of $8.2 million. I just wanted to follow up with, we're expecting to kind of segue from the budget. The bond sale is supposed to occur tomorrow, so we will have additional information for the board later this week on the results of that bond sale. But we had a pre-meeting this morning with our underwriter, and they're getting ready for the bond sale. It will happen first thing in the morning, and they said that our timing couldn't be better. The market is really good right now, and this is the they're not at the very lowest level, but they're close to the lowest level they've been this year. So that's really favorable for us. And so our ratings combined with how the bonds are being structured by our underwriter and the timing should result, pending any, emergencies in the morning or market changes in the morning, should result in a good bond sale for us. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow. Okay, moving on to the capital projects fund. Beginning fund balance of $135 million. Revenues from the capital projects fund come from both our capital facility and technology levies, also state match for our construction projects, investment earnings, and impact and mitigation fees. So we'll have approximately $40.4 million in revenues. So we've always had a transfer to the general fund. This we've been doing for about the past 4 years. This was a state requirement. The technology levy money that we spend on training and applications must be transferred must be spent in the general fund, and we transfer the revenues to the general fund. So so we're required to do that, so that's what that transfer is for. And then the new transfer to debt service, to the debt service fund that I just talked about. So we'll have total resources in the capital projects fund of $162 million and expenditures of $151 million for an ending fund balance of $10.8 million. And the next slide details what some of those expenditures are. We will be finalizing our Phase 2 modernization projects, completing construction on Rose Hill Middle, Rush and Bell Elementary, and ICS and Community School. We will be completing the STEM High School and Redmond and Eastlake High School additions. And then we will continue work on the 2010 approved levy projects, which includes portables, roofing upgrades, continuing ADA compliance. On the technology side, we are implementing the secondary one-to-one
mobile access devices, continuing networking projects, and server storage and things like that. So those are our projects for next year. Transportation Vehicle Fund. We have, the beginning fund balance includes, the voters approved a $3 million levy in the year 2000 and started collecting that in 2001. And we also receive money from the state each year, depreciation funds, and then we receive investment earnings. So we've been able to use those funds over the last 10 years to maintain our, to continue to buy buses. And we're planning, actually, we didn't buy any buses in the 11-12 school year. So next year, the budget includes expenditures for 11 new buses. 9 of those are special ed buses and 2 are regular buses. The budget also includes contingency. We always put additional contingency. So 11 buses are less than $1.3 million, but the budget does include some contingency. So our ending fund balance will be $1.4 million. Okay, so the rest of my presentation will focus on the general fund, and some of this, you heard in the work session, but I will start with an overview of the general fund, and then I'll talk about the key changes on the revenue and expenditure sides. So our beginning fund balance is estimated to be $19.8 million. We will have revenues of $230 million plus the transfer from capital projects. Our expenditures will be $238.8 million, and that will give us an ending fund balance of $18.2 million. The board policy requires a 5% fund balance, and that is shown in the committed minimum fund balance policy. Our projected fund balance does exceed that 5% by about 2.7%, so our total fund balance is 7.7%. We reserve that unassigned fund balance in that unassigned line item, and again, that's reserved to offset future state cuts and to cushion any shortfalls, and then planned impacts due to COLAs and pension impacts. So I will start with an overview of key changes in enrollment, and then go into revenue and expenditure impacts. So enrollment is our key driver of the budget, key driver of both revenues and expenditures. So this chart shows that in 11-12 we budgeted 23,271 average annual FTE, full-time equivalent students. The budget is based on average annual FTE, not head count. And next year, we are planning 23,827 students for a growth of 556 students. Now, we actually, half of that growth occurred this year. So we saw those students this year, and now we're just budgeting for them plus expected additional growth. So as you can see, due to the reconfiguration, our elementary projections are decreasing 1,600 students. Our middle school projections are increasing 387 students, and our senior high projections are increasing 1,760 students. Our enrollment projections are conservative. We don't want to plan for more students and plan for spending money and then not receive those students. So we budget very conservatively when it comes to enrollment. Though we do put in additional contingency, we budget additional contingency of 400 students. We budget revenues for 400 students and expenditures for 400 students. As a contingency only, we do not spend those dollars until those students actually come in. So it is normal for us to exceed our budgeted projections because of that conservative nature. Our secondary projections are based on actual registrations, and our elementary projections are based on projections, and our current, what we're seeing kids enroll are right on line with what we expect. additional enrollment changes that I want to highlight that I don't normally highlight in this presentation, but I thought they were driving key revenues and expenditures. Our special education enrollment is increasing about 3.1%, 100 students. Our CTE program at the middle school, the state approved paying for additional middle school STEM classes. Those are things such as game design, food science, applied technology, photography. They approved that change second semester, so we actually were able to claim additional CTE classes at our middle school this year, and the budget reflects the increase for this year plus what we expect to increase next year. In senior high, just a small change at senior high. Our Skills Center program is continuing to expand. Our current Skills Center program includes our DigiPen classes, our fire and life safety, allied health. We're adding dental and medical careers next year. And the Skills Center programs include students from other districts. So students come to us from outside the district to take these classes. So that's included in that enrollment. So the next couple slides are talking about our breaking out the key changes, increases, decreases in revenues. So we shared this with you at the last work session, so I'll go into a little more detail. Our basic ed, CTE enrollment, the revenue is increasing $2.6 million. Special ed, additional revenue of $500,000, and the levy, as we discussed last year, the legislature approved an additional 4% levy increase starting in 2012. We collected half of that in last year in the 11-12 budget, and we'll fully collect that next year, so we're fully collecting the 4%. So our levy is estimated to increase $3.5 million. We do budget the full voter-approved amount, though we can only collect what the state formula allows us to collect, and if that formula is less than the voters approved, it's called a rollback. We haven't done a rollback for 4 or 5 years, and we're anticipating we might have to do a rollback next year. So, and when that usually comes in October if we have to do that, and it comes before the board. So our budget includes anticipated rollback of the levy this year. And the other small change in revenues is for the last, I looked back, for the last 11 years, we've been transferring, we're allowed to transfer interest earnings from the Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund, and we've been doing that for the last 11 years. For about the last 5 years, it's been at a $800,000 level, and the board approves that each year. And we asked the board in August to approve that before the final adoption of the budget. Because we are spending down our capital projects budget, our modernization program is coming to an end, we're not going to be earning that much interest. So we're reducing the interest earnings by $400,000. So other changes from the state are just some small changes on state grants and legislative changes. Every year the state requires us to submit additional claims for high-cost students, and they call that safety net application. We budget both $2 million in revenues and $2 million in expenditures for these high-cost students. Next year we're reducing the budget by $500,000 because we have some high-cost students that are leaving the district, and so we're not going to spend that money, nor will we get the money from the state for them. The Beginning Educator Support Team grant was actually cut at the beginning of this year, so the budget just reflects that cut. Our national board participation is increasing. It increases every year. We now have about 180 teachers participating in the national board program. Our legislative, while we said the state didn't, give us any money or make any cuts, there were some small changes. They did decide to increase what's called MSOCs, materials, supplies, and operating costs. This is the old NERCs, old non-salary money. We received a small $200,000 increase for those. And transportation, last year in this presentation, I talked about the transportation funding formula was changing. We didn't plan on getting any new money with that funding formula. We didn't budget any new money. We did receive a little less than $100,000 in new funds due to the funding formula change this year, so we're budgeting that for next year. So overall, total state impact of negative $300,000, mostly due to the reduction in safety net. As far as federal grants, our federal special education grant is increasing by about $100,000. Our Title I grant is increasing by $800,000. Our self-supporting programs, revenues offset expenditures, expenditures offset revenues. Our food service program had some contingencies that they are reducing, so that's just a minor change of negative $100,000. All-day kindergarten, because we have more space in our elementaries, we're able to increase participation in our all-day kindergarten enrollment. So that's both reflective on the revenue and expenditure side. We actually, last year, we budgeted 46 classrooms, and this year we've got 60 classrooms. We have a 15.7% increase in enrollment in all-day kindergarten. So that's great news. Our extended day program, we're adding a program at Frost Elementary, so an add there for $100,000. The Paul Allen Foundation gave a grant this year to our STEM high school. The grant was $400,000. We received $200,000 in the 11-12 school year, and we're getting another $200,000 next year, so the budget reflects that. We're actually spending most of the money next year, so the budget reflects more spending than revenues, but it will have carryover for that. And then just miscellaneous changes for $100,000. So overall, the federal grants and other $1.8 million. So this is just a summary of those slides, 4 slides. Our revenue budget is increasing by a total of $7.7 million. This slide is another slice at how revenues look at what this is what you see in the actual state budget. This is how they want you to show revenues. So state apportionment is what enrollment drives, what our experience and education of our teachers drive. The main change there is due to enrollment increase. State categorical, that's all the state grants such as ELL and LAP. No change, not much change there. Federal, we talked about that change, which is Title I. Levy, we talked about that change. And then fee programs, that's primarily due to all-day kindergarten. And the other, there's a slight decrease. Most of that other is the transfer from capital projects. But the reason there's a decrease is it's also payment from other districts. And those payments are... Last year, we had a large payment from other districts for our Skills Center program because we're still starting up that program, and the other districts in our consortium paid us to help with those startup fees. As our enrollment increases, they're able to be more self-sufficient, so those payments from other districts are decreasing. So that's why that small change. So overall, a 3.4% increase in our revenues. So the other chart I like to show every year, as frustrating as it may be, is the sources of where our money comes from. And if you look over time, if you add both the state basic and state categorical, you can see that in 08-09, the state was providing 62% of our budget, and or 68%, sorry, I think I grabbed the wrong year, but on my notes. And then in 12-13, it's almost 62%. So you can see that the state, what the state is giving us is going down, and if you look at the local levy line, what our local taxpayers have to support has increased over time. So the state is continuing to shift the burden of education funding to local taxpayers. So, okay. So the next 2 slides focus on expenditures. So most of this I discussed when we discussed the revenues, but so on the expenditure side, we're increasing expenditures 3.8 million due to enrollment increases in regular education, special ed, CTE. Reconfiguration, $1.3 million. This includes, so we're having 1,700 students move to our secondaries, so we had to provide some additional resources at the secondary schools. This is for both certified staffing, counselors at secondary, building some secretary, IA time, custodial time, utilities for, increased utilities for the expansion of Redmond and Eastlake, security, so additional associate principals at Redmond and Eastlake. So that's what that line item is for. And if you recall, when we were going through the process of determining a reconfiguration, if we didn't reconfigure, we would have had to build 4 elementaries, and the fixed cost of opening 4 elementaries is a lot more than the cost of the reconfiguration. So that's just one way to look at that. Our new STEM high school that we're opening, again, has fixed costs for the librarian, secretary, custodial, utilities. We were also required to do well inspection from the county, so that's something new that is part of that budget. State and federal grants, which I talked about on the revenue side, increasing 1.9 million. The other piece I talked about on the revenue side is special education high-cost students, decreasing 500,000. Transportation for special education students. We increased the transportation budget $850,000 for contractual costs for contractual students. This is money that was spent in the special ed department, and it needed to be moved to the transportation department, both, as part of the new funding formula, and just that it wasn't in the right place, and so we're really just putting that in the right place. We also have, every year, we have to look at our fixed costs, and so we have a small increase under 100,000 for fixed costs such as utilities, some code requirements, fire monitoring, etc. As Tracy mentioned, we do an internal process to look at budget requests and ads through our strategic advisory leadership team, and some of the requests, the next 2 items relate to requests that SALT asked for and approved. So part of in the program support area, there's ads for PSAT testing for 10th graders that helps with college readiness, and so we're putting some additional funds in for college readiness. We're also providing AED support or purchase AEDs and ongoing maintenance for AEDs at our elementary schools. So that's a new item that we're budgeting for next year. The one-time cost item it's a reduction of $350,000. Last year in the budget, we added some one-time expenditures related to reconfiguration, about $300,000 for it's payment for, we have, part of our contract is payment for teachers when they transfer to another building. And so we had because of all the transfers that are happening due to reconfiguration, we added in the 11-12 budget an increase for that. Well, this budget reflects the decrease because we have to take it out because we're not going to continue to spend that. So that's what's included in that one-time cost. So overall, our expenditures are increasing $7.5 million. This, just like the revenue chart you saw earlier, is the format that the state puts our expenditures into, the state categories, and I'll just go through kind of the changes. Regular education that's primarily due to enrollment and reconfiguration. Alternative learning experience is where our BEST, now Emerson High School, and Family Learning Center, now Emerson K-12 programs are, and the decrease there is primarily due to lower enrollment. Special education, the increase there is due to enrollment and contractual staffing requirements. Vocational education, we talked about the middle school change there, so that's why that increase is there. Skills Center, same enrollment growth. Compensatory ed is where those state and federal grants such as Title I go, and Head Start and LAP and ELL, and the primary increase there is due to Title I. Other instruction, that's where all-day kindergarten, extended day programs, summer school goes. Increase there primarily due to all-day kindergarten. Community service is where our stadiums, our performing arts center, that's where our extended day program is, and the increase there is due to the additional extended day program. District-wide support includes all our business office functions, payroll, accounting, budgeting, our HR department, communications. It's also where our board expenses are, our election expenses and legal costs. It includes our facilities and utilities costs. So primarily the increase there is due to custodial changes due to reconfiguration, facility inspections, and utilities. Food service and transportation, the increase there is primarily due to the contractual transportation for special education students. So
Yeah, I always like to remind people that the line item for the board, which always shows around $500,000, doesn't go to us.
Right.
So if I actually got that amount of money, I'd be a millionaire by now after 20-some years.
Yeah. So overall, a 3.2% increase in our expenditure budget. So we always like to look toward the future. Budgeting is not just about 1 year, but it's about looking and making sure we're being fiscally responsible and making decisions this year and not harming what's going on in the future. So just assumptions that we're making for what's happening in the future is we will always continue to maintain on the financial side conservative enrollment projections so that we don't plan on spending money that we might not get. So we're planning 0.6, less than 1% growth, about 150 students over the next few years. The state economy, as you know, continues to have a slow recovery, so we don't know what the future holds for state education funding. There was a House bill passed, House Bill 2824, and I'm going to read this because it's pretty complicated. They passed an education funding task force, and this bill creates a joint task force on education funding. They must develop a proposal for reliable and dependable funding mechanism to support basic education programs. So if you recall, House Bill 2776 required, that was the change in the new funding, or the funding model and the funding formula, and it required all these enhancements to be phased in over time, and that was to start in the 2011-13 biennium. Well, we're done with that, and none of those enhancements have been phased in. So that's why this legislative bill has said, you guys now need to go develop a proposal for a reliable funding mechanism. So we'll see how far that goes. Levy lid. We're assuming we can continue to collect our levy up to the lid, but the legislature, to help offset those cuts years ago, or the last few years, gave us additional 4%, but that sunsets in 2017. Future cost of living adjustments, I'm making assumptions that the COLAs come back next year. We don't really know if that's going to happen, but because every time there's a COLA that impacts our local costs, then I'm assuming a COLA comes back in the future years. And we also know that the pension system is probably still underfunded, and they will have to probably ask for increases. I'm assuming a 2% increase for the next couple years, and every 2% increase is about $400,000 in local costs. Our fixed costs, as we do every year, we have to keep monitoring that and try to keep those limited. And as I say year after year, if it wasn't for our energy management work that we do in our facilities department, our utility costs would be even greater. So that work has really helped to keep our utility costs down. And of course, our commitment to the 5% fund balance reserve, that will continue to be maintained. So this chart just shows our kind of future revenue and expenditure projections. The revenue is in red and the expenditures are in green. And as you can see, we are spending, our expenditures are slightly higher in the beginning than revenues in most years. Again, this is conservative enrollment. These assumptions are no state cuts. This does assume the COLA returns in 13-14. This assumes, the local levy fills the hole, but as you can see in 17-18, that levy drops off. We've made the assumption that that goes away. Now, there was a levy committee that met last year or the year before that, and was to come out with a proposal to, look at how the levy formula was developed. Well, the committee basically came out with didn't come out with recommendations to make changes. So we don't know, unless they fill that hole in 2017, we don't know what's going to happen with that. So, the cuts will be needed in the future. So, try not to end on, that's the end of my presentation, and I shouldn't necessarily end on that note, but the good news is for the 12-13 budget, I think I've presented a very good budget, and we're fiscally sound. We're maintaining our 5% fund balance. And just a reminder to the public that there will be a public hearing in August 6th, and final adoption of the budget will occur at that time. The budget is online. The public can view the budget online. They can email me with questions or come into the Resource Center and get copies of the budget, or send emails. So that's how the public can access additional information on the budget. So if there's any questions.
Any questions?
I have one naive question. In our budget summary, it had $7 million listed as general fund expenditure on the federal stimulus. And I'm assuming that we weren't paying for the federal stimulus. So can you just explain to me why that line item's there?
Yeah, when during that time, that was when the state budgets were having in dire need, and so the federal government provided stimulus dollars to the states to then be allocated to districts. So we received money in those federal stimulus dollars. Some of it was additional monies that we used for one-time training, like in our special education department. And others were actually replacing basic ed dollars. So it saved the state from spending money on basic ed. But for us, for the district, all we did was just charge it to a different place. So we spent less in basic ed and more in federal stimulus, but we weren't.
Right, so this is just the accounting piece, but from the standpoint of somebody who, our constituents, all money is green and fungible.
Yes.
Therefore, our expenditures are regular education.
Yes.
So that $7 million wasn't.
It wasn't all new money.
I'm
That's
thinking that some
correct.
of these tables could perhaps be cleaned up a bit
Okay.
for somebody who's not an accountant.
Okay.
Along the same lines, and it really isn't, I don't think it needs to be reformatted, but I think it needs to be explained because it's a little out of the mainstream, and that is, with the Capital Projects Fund, we start out with a fund balance and then spend it down. Most of the funds start out with a fund balance, then they build up, and then, so it's important to explain that that really is the nature of the beast in terms of how projects are financed, that stuff actually gets done, and then we spend the money.
Right.
But it's because of the way that capital funded projects are funded and how they're used, but it doesn't have to do with, something bad happening. It's because it's the nature of the beast.
Correct.
Any others?
Yeah, just in reading the budget summary, there was, on the first page, you have the budget relationship to boards ends policies. And then looking at that, the piece that I was trying to do was to use it as sort of more of a policy document, as sort of how does this tie into the strategic plan and the different pieces. And so just at our work session tonight, there was discussion about different focus areas. And we have these specific things here tied to ends results policy. I kind of want to, can you group it in some way so as you read it, you can look, it's easier to say this is how this connects to our ends. These things specifically tie here and provide strength. For our community reading it, what are those big goals and priorities that we're trying to do? Because the biggest challenge I had when reading the budget is there's lots of great information, but I couldn't match the district's priorities with where the money was being spent.
Okay.
Having discussed that, I found in this monster document, 2 pages, the budget summary in the F-195 it does a much better job of connecting to our goals than what was in our budget summary for public consumption.
And so that just, if there's some way to redraft that and bring that text in from sort of a...
What page?
Page 1 of 2. I mean, it's not very far into it. F-195, literally, the second page.
Does that make sense?
And basically, it gets into things like how much is spent on teaching activities, how much is spent on teaching support, how much is spent on teaching salaries, all the things that are sort of the obvious. And when you dig into the fact that, ultimately, what sort of budget have we got when 5.65% is for supplies? The rest of it is salaries. That's the reality of our system.
It is indeed.
Anyway, I actually really liked that couple of pages.
Which is why it makes hardest to do cuts, is because mostly when you start cutting, you cut into people.
Yeah.
And we do a little bit, again, just a little bit different look too in the where does the money go and how showing what support we provide directly to the classroom and again, providing those details. And it is a little bit different slice than how the state defines its activity. We call that activities, teaching activities versus.
And ironically, I found the pie charts after I found the tables.
Okay.
And the tables are much easier for us to link up to our mission as a district.
Yeah, and my goal is that the more that analysis is provided and that link is given as blatantly as possible is helpful to not have to hunt. Because we talk about our goals and objectives, but I couldn't find them.
Okay.
And the last thing that I had as a suggestion on our budget summary is overall, I'm glad we are doing our best to summarize these things in a digestible format. And one rule of thumb is 1 word for each % of the budget. Anything that's 0.05% of the budget shouldn't be in there. So, if it's $12,000 or whatever, it just doesn't belong in our budget summary when we're trying to explain to the public where the money came from or where it went to. So,
So summarize further.
yeah, well, but that's the whole thing. When you, well, depending on the program, but I was looking at our revenues, we have revenues from other school districts, and it comes to $42,000. Who cares? At the same time,
The accountants care.
Sorry, they do.
I know the accountants care, but from a public perspective, it's
I
money
hear you.
coming in. And then we have things like there's under our expenditure budget. The flip side of it is that we have what was it I found? Community services. Community services is $1.9 million, and yet there's nothing right there explaining what it is. And at $1.9 million, it deserves more than community services. So basically, the more money it is, the more verbiage it deserves, and the less money, the converse. Anyway, just a suggestion. Oh, I know it's explained there, but it's not explained on the page where it shows you the money.
I see. You want them tied.
I mean, really, that's the other thing. Is they're ordered in the order in which our categories on budgeting program give them to us. I would much prefer to see them ordered by what's the biggest dollar item at the top. Next, regular education, $143 million. Great, that's at the top. But the next thing, alternative learning experience, is not our second priority. Our second biggest thing down here is support services, $26 million. But what's a support service?
Did you change this from, I feel like I'm missing a chart.
previous year.
And I guess for me, I would rather not have the explanations in the chart where this is, but I could see a reference saying, see page such and such for definitions of categories.
Right, and that's where I'm
I
getting
mean, I
into
think
things.
that's what I would rather
thought we
see
used to have
than
it-
filling in all the extra,
Too many people talking?
must be, without, rather than sticking in them underneath all the little things there, because it's just easy to go and you can read them, and they're just the next page. So, but it might help to have a definition there of where to find them.
Well, for budget wonks, the Sunday Everett Herald does a great job of, and it'd be nice if somebody in King County did the same thing, but they did a great job in laying out all the expenditures in schools in Snohomish County and how money's actually spent in the classroom and everything. And so for those of you who have time to surf the web, look at the Sunday Everett Herald and see how they actually try to lay out how money's spent in Snohomish County.
The other question I had, and I don't know if you can do it at all, was we talk about levy money, bond money, state money, federal money, and then it all sort of gets lumped. So like on the revenue side, I can see it, but then on the expenditure side, it's not clear to me where that money is funding. So I don't know if there's a way to do percentage. I'm thinking of it sort of as for people to, because this is sort of the community's document to better understand the budget. And so we talk about levy and bond, but we never really talk about, well, our levy pays 50% of our classroom expenses, or to give an idea as to where those funds are supporting. I liked your table in our presentation that sort of showed the shift that happens from state and what's happened in that shifting, and then what do they do specifically. Bonds are pretty clear because, we build buildings with a lot of our capital. Technology is pretty clear. But that was the piece, like, I know we're doing one-to-one computers next year. And I was like, where is that in our priority here of technology? I don't see it coming out yet. That's a fairly large initiative we have coming down the pike.
So ironically, I guess it's my second time disagreeing with you for the night, but I think that's a separate table.
That's fine. Put it on a different table.
I was really
don't care.
concerned by having this federal stimulus money in here as an expenditure. An expenditure is on regular education. It doesn't care where the money came from. But having something that does link the two tables together, I think, would be useful. I mean, your bonds go to the capital fund.
And you have done that wonderful table of showing where funding goes from state and levy, actually on one page in the past.
We need to resurrect that in the budget presentation, because we can certainly do that,
because that's been
too.
really helpful. And I think, to me, that document always has been helpful to show the public when you sit there, and that's where you go, athletic fees, state 0, levy X, or percent, or total 100%, or whatever you do it in percent or dollars. And the same thing true with athletics or in transportation, where people think the state pays for the entire transportation, and they do not.
Right.
And teachers. I mean, there are teachers that we pay for, and other staff that are paid solely out of levy.
And we tried to do some of that with, it doesn't, in this document, pages 10 through 12, we identify the revenue. Now, we don't say the source of that revenue, if it's federal, state, but it is everything but the local revenue is allocated to a program, and then you can see which programs don't have revenue allocated them, and that's really what's left with all our levy and fee things. So that table tries to do some of that. So,
Yeah, I think this is good feedback, and we can think about how to make that link stronger between our strategic goal areas, what our priorities are, where the money comes from, where it's expended in a digestible way in the community document. So we'll take all of the ideas and suggestions and see what we can come up with.
okay.
As I said, I have nothing clear, like in
Right.
what I want. I just know that.
What you're looking.
Yeah, no, I think
So
that the
unfortunately, I
feedback
can't guide
made
it.
sense, though. I think,
Yeah, we're getting there.
I've got notes, and I know Barbara's taken some notes. And
None of
so-
this is meant to minimize. That was a beautiful presentation. So
Thank you.
You do a good job of keeping us up to date on these things. I just feel like
Thank you.
without you, it's a little bit harder to get through it.
Well, and
Great.
thank you, your department, we know how many hours you all put in to put this together, and at least the legislature got done in a more reasonable time this year than last.
That was definitely helpful.
Because last year, they were scrambling up until this meeting,
Yeah.
putting the figures together.
No
because
matter
of the
what
late.
happens, we're still working on it the day,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
still last-minute stuff to
Of
do,
course.
but it was definitely a much smoother budget process this year than it has been in the past, so we're thankful for that.
Good.
So,
Great.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Barbara.
And again,
Thank
any
you.
board members, if other questions come up, please also send them
Email
to Barbara. You know, if you need to sit down with her and meet with her one-on-one with other things.
Yep.
Have done
Now
that.
that the budget's done, I have lots of time
Yeah.
to meet with you.
I've
So-
done that in the I've done that in the past, especially when I was new. Spent many hours with either she or Janine just sitting down saying, okay, talk to me a little bit more for clarity. But public, remind everyone, if you go to the website, you can find the budget there. You have comments, you have questions. Please let us know, and there is a public hearing on August 6th if you want to come here and speak to the board. But you can speak to us ahead of time. That's okay. Okay, it's almost 9. We have a couple more things and ELs, and that, does anybody feel a need for a 5-minute break before we progress, or do you want to motor on? It's up to you all. I'm not hearing anything. Does anybody need a 5-minute break? Ready to, okay, we'll motor on. Go through. Okay. You may motor
Ready
on.
to go. Okay, so the next item on non-consent agenda is the Children's Internet Protection Act compliance approval. So it's interesting because we mentioned earlier this evening and just recently in the budget presentation that we will be implementing one-to-one at our secondary schools, and so it's a timely topic around Children's Internet Safety and Protection Act. So in 2008, the Protecting Children in the 21st Century Act passed Congress, adding new requirements to the Children's Internet Protection Act, or CIPA, and the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, released guidance in 2011 clarifying the new requirements related to Internet safety policies for schools. So districts must provide assurance of compliance with these new requirements as a condition of application for E-rate funding. So we get some funding as part of E-rate. It's not a giant amount of funds, but it is related to funding, and we believe it's good practice to have these policies in place, even aside from the connection to E-rate funding. So under new law, school districts must update their internet safety policies on or before July 1st, 2012. We've got updated policies attached. Essentially, the policies now must specify that we will provide the education to minors about appropriate online behavior, which includes interaction with other individuals on social networking sites and in chat rooms, and provide education around cyberbullying awareness and response. OSPI's provided a policy template to assist districts, so we did use portions of that template. In order to comply with the new CIPA requirements, our acceptable use policy, or our AUP, has been updated to address these areas. We noticed in looking at our current AUP that it has a mixture of acceptable use procedures for staff and students. So this gave us an opportunity to really streamline that policy to focus on students, and then we'll also be updating our policy around staff
Okay, yeah,
as
that was
well.
a question I had, okay.
Yeah, so this policy that you're looking at tonight is tailored toward students.
Okay.
As part of the compliance, again, students have to be educated about appropriate online behavior, so we've not only updated our policy to reflect that, but we also are in the process of developing some resources in terms of digital citizenship modules that will be delivered in schools in the fall. And those resources, we also have curriculum resources being identified and approved by our Instructional Materials Committee. So in addition to updating the internet safety policies, the law also requires us to employ a technology protection measure that blocks or filters internet access. We have now adopted, we've had internet filtering software in place, but we have now adopted a new software filtering system called Lightspeed Internet Filtering Software, which provides for the required filtering by detecting and blocking material defined as inappropriate by the SIPA guidelines. Lightspeed also provides reporting for us that allows for monitoring of online behavior by our students. So these new requirements will be reviewed with administrators and staff at the beginning of the year next year. And again, we will provide, we've got a plan for providing training on digital citizenship and ensuring that our students are aware of and signing off on the acceptable use procedures in the fall. So our recommendation is that the board adopt our new updated policy as part of our compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second. Do you have a motion second? Any questions or comments for Tracy?
I had a question around personal laptops and how this works with personal laptops. Does it still provide all the filter? I'm assuming it's through the internet, so I'm just checking.
We are aware that in some schools we have students bringing in their own personal device. Our current strategy is around supporting and providing a device for students. So that's one of the current issues with students bringing in their own devices. They're signing on to our network, our wireless network, but all of the software that we have loaded on our district image machines is not there. The filtering would occur as part of being on our wireless network, but students wouldn't have access to all of the curriculum resources that we have loaded onto our machines. So in terms of being on the network, the AUP speaks of behavior expectations when you're on our network. So whether you're using your own device or a district-provided device, but right now our strategy is really focused on providing the device for students, and potentially at some point in the future, we might have a way of supporting more students bring your own device and providing all of the curriculum resources and things that we have on our district image computers. But so it's kind of a long answer to your question that yes, the internet, the AUP covers students when they're on our network, regardless of the device that they're using.
But currently, it looks like a personal laptop won't necessarily be an option at the high school based on what you're saying.
Right. Well,
Okay.
we don't really have the infrastructure or strategy in place to support every student bringing a different device. And one of the couple of things that we have talked about is, from a teaching perspective, teachers are able to use our software to control and monitor what's happening on student laptops. District-provided student laptops, and if students bring in multiple different devices and the curriculum resources aren't preloaded on their device, it's a teaching obstacle or barrier for people. So our focus is on providing the device for students so everyone has the same resources and materials available.
Okay, which is sort of outside this policy, so.
But given the capability of, telephones now, or handheld, that's an issue that isn't going to go away. I mean, it's obviously something that we're going to have to probably address sooner than later.
Right, and we do have, all of our schools have policies about, we recognize that students have their cell phones and need their cell phones to connect with their parents potentially after school, but all of our schools have rules around that your cell phone needs to be put away during class time, or you shouldn't be texting during class time unless it's part of the structured activity that the teacher is providing. So, but right now, even though every student might have a mobile device of their own, it doesn't have the same kind of resources that we have. So it's not really, we're not really able to use that student device instructionally like we can.
Well, I'm thinking more of just
District-provided
disruption
devices.
and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. And we're on to ELs.
Okay, so our first EL for this evening under tab 17 is EL5, Treatment of Students and Parents. And for this particular EL, we are in compliance, we believe, in all areas, and there are no areas that are in partial compliance. So part of what we have talked about is using this time for discussion of areas that are in partial compliance. So for this particular EL, since we're in compliance, we could still do any discussion that you would like, or we could move on to the next EL that does have some areas in partial compliance.
Let's move to the next.
If I can just say one. Yes. When I was looking at this, there's the component in there that talks about feedback from the community. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what page exactly. I didn't write it down. But it was one of the surveys looking at how well the school district involves the community. And I'd be intrigued with, as we implement more community participation, do we see that increase over time, and to pay attention to that, because that is a strategy for this year. LWSA schools gather feedback on important issues. So it was just one of those things to pay attention to as we go through. It could be interesting to see if we have an impact there in shifting that even more.
And we have identified the opportunity moving forward into next year to do our EL review this summer to see, some of those areas and what we want to make sure we're collecting data on and reporting as part of the EL. So that's good.
Great. Okay.
So we want to move on then to EL6.
EL6.
So EL6, Student Learning Environment. This is an interesting one that I am looking forward to having as part of our conversation for a review this summer when we look at our ELs, because we continue to be in partial compliance. The objective here is to assure a climate that's characterized by support and encouragement for high achievement. So we do, as you can see from the EL, employ many strategies to assure this kind of climate. And where we struggle with is what exactly would be evidence of assuring a climate. So we produce and detail quite a bit of evidence in this EL, but given the way that the EL is written about, how do you provide evidence of assuring a climate? That's where sort of the dissonance is a little bit, and why we continue to put it in partial compliance. The areas that are more clear, 2 and 3, where we're assuring that instructional time's provided and not interrupted by unnecessary intrusions, we do have that area in compliance, as well as Part 3. So, do we want to have some discussion about Part 1, or do we want to tackle this when we do our EL review later in the summer?
Well, I know we had some questions in this area.
There was, the one specifically that comes to mind was looking at the disconnect that occurred between the idea of the perception of giving a academic really rigorous or support and encouragement for high achievement, I think it was. And the teachers gave a very strong, staff was like at a 90% saying yes, whereas the students who were surveyed were at about 60%. And so there's this disconnect between what teachers are saying and what the students are
Page
perceiving.
4 of 10.
4 of 10. And so there was some, I'd be intrigued to know, well, why is there so much of a disconnect there? What is, because that is a common, we've had those discussions as a board around how do you challenge kids in the classroom and make sure you do support that. And sometimes what we perceive is not necessarily the perception of the students or the community. So that sort of disconnect seen, and it was.
And it's interesting when you look back at that chart on page 4, back to 2008, that discrepancy between what students are reporting and what staff are reporting is pretty consistent over time.
Yeah.
So, part of that question, I think, is, when students are answering that question, what's their interpretation of creating a climate of support and encouragement? What's the teacher's interpretation of that same question? Because that discrepancy has existed for a number of years. So I agree that's an area that we ought to
And it
ought to
aligns
dig
with things
into.
I hear from students and from community. So that's the piece of why I'd be intrigued to learn a little bit more.
Yep. Any other comments that you want to add in this area? We got the additional information on advanced placements, so that was another question.
And the other piece that was in the junior high, we talked about integrated honors, the shift in the middle school policy going from a separate honors class to going to an integrated honors that I know that Evergreen has utilized for quite a period of time.
And Inglewood as well.
And Inglewood, okay. And just sort of what has been the experience of that in comparison to a separate honors class? And does it still maintain that support and high achievement? Because there's concern that comes up around that sort of thing. And so that's the question of how are we going to be looking at that to ensure that we are getting it and that the kids are getting the, so do we do linkages sessions and talk to kids from the different places to see how it works? And so as we make that shift.
And actually, I think that would be a good area to keep in mind to follow up on and see how is it working, because it has had some ups and downs in past years when it's come and gone. So, we've cycled through it many years since my kids were here. We did it while they were here. So we've had the ups and downs with it. So I'd like to know, really, is it effective this go-round? Because I think there's other support that's been there for teaching and how do you do it in the classroom than may have existed in past years.
One of the things you'll see on that middle level strategic plan is this particular item around integrated honors at the middle school and what planning and learning we've done toward implementing it this fall. Because as you mentioned, we've got some of our current junior highs who have an integrated honors model. Some of our current junior highs have a standalone honors. One of the reasons in the shift is we want to expand honors offerings to more students because in a standalone model, only 30 students, if there's one section of honors, can access that honors course. And in some of our schools, we have a pretty significant wait list for honors and not really good criteria to apply for who gets in and who doesn't, because honors is really a different program from Quest. At the schools where we have an integrated model, there's more access. Every student can access honors. And then I think the question is that level of honors the same kind of honors that students who are currently accessing it in a standalone model, the same level of rigor? And that's what we're really paying close attention to as we move toward this shift and have it on our work plan to implement and evaluate.
Right, and are students doing it, is the other question. Are they choosing to do that? Are they getting the designation for it? Does it seem to attract? So that's the same piece. So
what I could probably do even in the meantime or earlier next year is get some current data from our schools, because we did look at the data from Inglewood, for example, to see how many students are earning an honors designation on their transcript. And it's a pretty significant number, although I don't remember it off the top of my head. So, great.
Anything else?
I was going to just follow up. I was staring at the AP number. I swear I saw something in my email recently that included the individual student numbers, like how many kids.
Yes.
Is that something we can roll into this on next year's?
Yes. So I sent
you.
that in
Yeah,
separate
okay.
emails.
I knew I'd seen it. I just wasn't.
Yeah, it was by school. Yeah.
Because it
Individual
shows
students.
instances of
Yeah, but it's
participation.
the individual people.
and it
just-
presented a very different picture that about 1/3 of students were accessing an AP class in any given year.
Right.
And it was different between the schools when you looked at it.
Anyway, just rolling that together with this would be very
Well,
helpful.
and I think the other thing, too, is to take that, now that we have that number, is how many of them actually take the exams. Would be interesting,
Yes.
of the students that are enrolled. I know lots of exams are taken, but I do know some students take the class and don't necessarily take the exam,
And
which is
some
fine.
students take the exam and don't take the class.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, too. That's true, too. Okay, anything else on EL6? Okay, then EL8.
Sorry, there was one more.
Yes?
The signature programs at the high school. You talked about those in here, talking about, it was some of the alternative options at the high school.
The signature programs?
And we talked about it at the retreat.
Correct. So, and that's also, you'll see on our high school work plan
Okay.
that the STEM signature program lab concentrations will be available to students at the STEM school in 2013, beginning with their 11th grade year. So next year, we're starting with 9-10, and at 11th grade is when students begin participating in a STEM lab signature program. That's our same time frame for when we want STEM signature programs available to students in other high schools. So the development work that we're doing right now is following that timeline. In fact, just last week, we had a planning meeting with teachers and principals from all of our high schools, sort of a brainstorming and visioning session around potential for STEM signature programs. Now, part of our work plan you'll see is not just STEM. We're beginning with STEM to coincide with the STEM school having STEM signature programs, but then we also want to expand that whole notion of signature programs to other areas. So we're having students have a lot of different pathway options for signature programs, STEM and beyond.
Right, and in that it talked about that the community would have input and that whole component. So I'm just curious when that was on the table to occur.
Right. So it, the kind of first step was doing some internal processing, because really we had talked with principals about this, but not yet expanded the conversation to teachers. I mean, principals have had conversations with teachers in their building. So we had this meeting last week, and that was one of the things that was raised, and that's been on our radar all along, is we want to make sure that we're creating programs that students want to participate in. So we're not just coming up with programs that no one wants to do, and we're getting input not just from students, but from parents as well. So that's on our
And even broader community as well, beyond the parents.
Yes.
I would even pull in business and.
Absolutely. Yes. So when I mentioned earlier, sort of we have these project plans in development that are even more detailed than what we showed you on the level plans. That's a piece of every one of those plans is who are the stakeholders, what input do we need to seek from which groups, and how are they going to be involved in this? So thanks. So on the plan.
EL8.
Okay, EL8, in past years, we have reported this as in compliance for response to Part 1, and we changed it this year to partial compliance because we had a discussion about what number 1 really says, and what number 1 really says is that we're ensuring appropriate input from the following groups as textbooks and instructional materials, including content-based software, are reviewed and selected. Students, parents, teachers, administrators, and other staff members. So as we really focused on, are we seeking appropriate input from all of those groups for all of these items, we believe that we are not in compliance, that we're in partial compliance, because we currently do not have a formal process for ensuring appropriate input for content-based software. And so that's one of the reasons we've identified that that's work that we need to do to be in compliance. And we currently do not have a formal process for eliciting appropriate input from students. So they're listed as one of the feedback groups here, and that happens via teachers and what teachers are reporting their students, but we weren't convinced that we had a formal enough process for the student part. So that's why we have marked ourselves in partial compliance.
Couple of things. One, and of course I know you've got more work to do as far as the issue that was raised tonight during the public discussion. But typically, how would a book like Zinn's, book in this case, be? Would it go through the actual curriculum adoption, since it's used as a supplement to the actual text?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how that would work is when we review our instructional materials policy, it talks about essentially the main text or the core text. That needs to go through the IMC approval process. It also speaks to other texts that the teacher is assigning as sort of, I don't want to say supplemental, but to supplement the core text. For example, novels. If the teacher's assigning a novel that all students will read, it's not the textbook, but it is a text, and that would need to go through IMC. So if the teacher is assigning it to all students to read, then it needs to be approved from IMC. If it's on a supplemental reading list, like here's a list of books that you could read if you so choose, a reading list of books that might be in the library, if there's fewer than 4 books in the library according to our policy, or fewer than 4 books being purchased, then it wouldn't need to go through IMC. So really the core of the issue is the teacher assigning it to all students to read?
Right.
Or is it part of a optional reading list?
And it gets back to the issue that was raised some weeks ago about how books in the libraries are selected. And so, it's an interesting area, and there are different kind of levels of approval depending on how many pieces of curriculum or materials are used. So
That's right.
I guess that's the only caveat that we need to add to this. Thanks.
And that, the library conversation that started a few weeks ago is the one that has me wondering about this. Where does library content fall? Is that something that falls under this EL, or does it exist in a realm of entirely administrative discretion?
We, the IMC policy speaks to library materials in the policy, but I think our interpretation of this particular EL is around adoption of textbooks, adoption of sort of core text materials, so it doesn't really speak to library materials, although they're included in our policy around instructional materials.
Right, so it's basically something where, in terms of our policy governance, we don't have anything formal around library content, but you do have administrative policies on that.
Correct.
The other thing, actually, I was kind of tickled with, because I had not noticed it in previous readings, but courtesy of our speaker earlier, apparently the IMC does have a formal reconsideration process.
Yes, it does.
That's correct.
So I suppose we should point him at that if he's that concerned about it.
And I'm working on that, kind of digging into that particular situation, and
Thanks.
we'll be able to get a response back.
Yeah? Well, he's looking for balance, and I have to admit, I rather enjoy having a little bit of opinion in my reading, but balanced opinions is very useful. When you read 2 people who disagree with each other, you've got to come up with a person, oh, come on, history is written by the winners. It's a well-known thing that opinion is a very strong thing in history.
Back to EL8. Any more questions or comments for, any more comments or questions for EL8, please? Could we have this conversation offline? Thank you. Any more comments or questions about EL8?
Will this also include, we had talked about the piloting of I just remember the foreign language curriculum when they had the adoption and never got piloted. So there was some discussion about, do we look at piloting curriculums? Would that be included in what you were saying in the review and the students?
Yeah, that's one of the things we discussed in terms of marking ourselves in partial compliance here. We were remembering that conversation about how, is that the avenue for seeking student feedback? And so we haven't quite landed on what is our avenue for seeking that. Is it through a pilot but that conversation kind of helped us to think about maybe that might be the strategy, or there may be other strategies.
And just a reminder, there are students on IMC, or should be.
Yes, that is correct.
So we do have students on the regular committee when materials come to the committee to be done.
But not on the curricular committee, which is different when you're choosing a
Correct.
curriculum.
Correct. They do also get the presentation on textbooks, so we do have students as part of that, their formal presentation of the committee before it comes to the board. But there are a small number of students compared to what would be impacted in the schools. But we do have student involvement in the ongoing IMC committee.
Right.
Correct. From each of our high schools, right? Okay, nothing else there? These will then go in consent next time. Superintendent's report.
Okay. I thought I would take just a couple minutes this evening to talk about moving into the role of superintendent and provide a brief overview of our governance process and policies for our community, and recap a little of our work session topic this evening on our strategic goal areas. So in the Lake Washington School District, we have governance policies that set the mission and other ends or goals for our organization. And these policies structure the relationship between the board of directors and the superintendent, and they set limits on how the superintendent is to carry out the goals, which is why we are having this EL conversation, for example. It's about setting the limits on how we are meeting our executive limitations and our ends. So we've got governance processes, policies around board-CEO relationship. We have executive limitations like the ones that we were just reviewing tonight, and end results that defined our desired outcomes for students in terms of what they're expected to know and be able to do. And our ends policies are based on our district mission, our vision, our student profile, and our guiding principles. So while I've been in the district for 17 years now, this next year will be my first year as superintendent, as you all know, and I see my role very much in collaborating with the board of directors to establish direction for the organization and to develop a strategic plan for us moving forward. So early this evening, we were in a work session together, and I outlined for the board my continued commitment to our district mission and vision. And I also outlined for the board a plan that articulates strategic goals for our work, as well as the beginning development of some student performance and organizational performance targets. And while these plans are still in development, I do want to share the 5 strategic goal areas that we discussed earlier this evening, and those are academic success for every student, safe and innovative learning environments, highly effective personnel, community engagement and satisfaction, and effective use of resources and fiscal responsibility. Throughout the summer and early in the fall, we'll be continuing the work to establish our student and organizational performance targets associated with these 5 strategic goal areas, connected to our end results, connected to our executive limitations, and of course, connected to our strategic work. So we have many plans to further flesh out, but this evening we did discuss and agree on a construct moving forward, and we will have that further fleshed out to share with our community in the fall.
And as I said, Robbie would be dancing if he had been here. He would have been indeed. Great work session, too. Is that it?
That's it.
That's it for today? No, and school is over as of today.
As of today.
For students.
For
I
students.
think staff
We have
has to be here tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, that's correct.
So school is officially over this year on, what, the 25th? Wow. You're well aware of it? They're dancing at your house?
No, I have a child who's very upset. His birthday is June 29th.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, he didn't, oh, sorry.
Close.
So close. We tried. We're getting closer. Doug, anything from the legislature for us?
Yeah, we met as a legislative committee, our state association, a couple of weeks ago in Olympia, and we've started to put together our recommendations for a legislative program for the next session. And as you know, in September, we'll have our annual legislative assembly and start to actually flesh it out. The one thing that was interesting, there were a number of things that were interesting, but the one thing I'll highlight is that we did pass a resolution, unlike past years, favoring the DREAM Act, which will result in some interesting discussion at the assembly. And but I think it is, at least to me, it seems personally like a maturing of the committee in terms of dealing with that issue, and so that was very interesting. But again, the Ledge Assembly will meet, I think it's in Seattle this year, down at SeaTac. And so anyway, I will keep you informed.
Okay, thank you. Anything for board follow-up from anybody? I think we've
Oh, I was going
got things.
to share that I had a chance to go to 3 graduation ceremonies this year, and of course, it's always...
All in one day, yes.
But I think Key Arena really is the best venue that we've ever used, and good acoustics, and I think it's reasonably good for parking and that sort of thing. And in terms of logistics, I think it's a good venue. But it's always...
Except for those of us who go to Juanita High School,
Well,
who think it's a perfect venue.
Juanita is close to the neighborhood.
It was packed. That field house was packed. I want to say we probably had about 4,000 or 5,000 people in there.
But that's
There
what
was not an
speaks
empty seat.
to the nice thing about Key Arena is that you can get your family there. I mean, you're not crammed in there, and so there is that.
Yeah, it's great.
I went to the Family Learning Center graduation. That was lovely. We got aisles on each of the children, students,
Yeah.
young adults.
Yeah.
Quite impressive.
That's why I always like going to the ones that were best, now Emerson in the past. I did Juanita High School, and it was a fabulous graduation. And they did a very nice job, and kids were great, and speakers were great. And they said
Well,
well
always
attended,
it's-
and the kids didn't want to leave. So what can I tell you? They just kept trying to get them go back down the aisle so they could go out the building, and they were just having a grand old time at the end of graduation. It was like, do we have to go somewhere? Oh, okay.
But personally, and I think you guys share that, is it really reminds you why you're doing this job, because it is.
Yes, it does.
It is a rite of passage, and it's inspiring.
Well, and it's also the emphasis that's placed on the importance of the ceremony and why you have it, that it is a culmination and a meeting of criteria to get there. And it's not taken lightly by anyone that's there. So, yes, really great.
I was going to say, because I had the pleasure of doing the Transition Academy with 7 kids graduating, then ICS with 60, and then Redmond High with almost 500.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting to see the difference across those 3 different
Sure.
schools and what occurred. So definitely worth the option.
Yes, they are.
On a slightly other follow-up, the dyslexia presentation tonight was fabulous, and it's great to hear that all that work is going on. I know with some of the RTI work that's going on, it'd be interesting to make sure that we are addressing some of that dyslexia and how do you get there in those younger ages. The letter the gentleman read for the woman who couldn't make it gave some of the implications of some of the challenges that occur at those young ages when you don't get the intervention that's needed, and there are specifics, and we haven't quite got there yet with being able to diagnose effectively and to at least have the skill set. So it's great to have that subgroup working on it, and the more we can partner with them, I think that's fabulous.
Very good. Okay, anything for the future items for agenda that anybody has? Okay, again, a great work session. Our next meeting, we do not meet in the month of July. This is actually our July meeting today. And we will be meeting on August the 6th, and we do have a 5 o'clock work session with a 7 o'clock board meeting. So we're going to have everybody enjoy their month off. So, and remember, that is the public hearing for the budget. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.